I'm Tony Kornheiser, Betty White.
What?
But nowadays I make her wear a life preserver.
I was going to say that was a 1960s answer at best.
That was a great answer. I wear a life preserver also in a pool at this point.
We should just mention to our younger viewers, Betty White was a glamorous woman
Yes, she was.
for a long time.
Yes.
So people look at Betty White now, they want to make jokes. Betty, come on now.
No, she's beauty.
Yeah.
But
it was a minute. It was a minute.
It's a ways back. It's a ways back. Welcome to PTI, boys and girls. In today's episode, Duke is the big favorite. The Sixers send a message to the Bucks, and the Dolphins hope for more Fitzmagic. But we begin today with the tournaments. The big headline is that 3 teams from the same conference, the ACC, have been given number 1 seeds: Duke, Virginia, North Carolina. This is only the second time in history this has happened. In 2009, Louisville, Pittsburgh, and Connecticut, then all in the Big East.
But they weren't really the Big East.
Were given number 1 seeds.
Louisville.
That year, North Carolina, the other number 1 seed, won the tournament. Wilbon, are you okay with 3 teams from the ACC getting number 1 seeds?
I guess so, Tony. I think I concentrated less on that element of the tournament field being announced than I ever have before. One, I don't even understand, like most coaches, and I love the coaches who admit it publicly, I don't even understand what they've done, net, gross, quadrants. I don't get it. I think it's still flawed. You have teams who are ranked in the 30s, like Clemson, I think, and NC State, and they're out. Team like St. John's, 71 in. So it's still subjective. It's always going to be subjective. I'm less angry about that than I used to be, and I suspect you are too.
Well, let's make it clear that had Tennessee beaten Auburn, they would have been a number 1 seed.
Right.
Had they gone to overtime with them, they would have been a number 1 seed. They got blowed out by 20, so they lost it. So you ask yourself, who is in play for another number 1 seed?
Right.
Gonzaga is not in play because Gonzaga is a Western team. They want geographical representation. They're not in play. North Carolina is in play. I'm looking around. Who would I think about? And I think the logical team is Michigan State.
Okay. Yes, that was my logical team.
But I did some numbers on this.
Okay.
North Carolina 27-6, Michigan State 28-6, which is better. But in the last 2 months, Mike, Carolina has lost only to Virginia and Duke, who are number 1 seeds. And as you well know, Michigan State has lost to Purdue, a 3. But Indiana, Illinois, Indiana,
I think that conference is better than the other conference.
But these are non-tournament teams. So to me, it's legitimate. The 3 ACC teams are legit.
You know what? You know what's going to be legit? If they get to the Final Four like the real 3 Big East teams did back in 1985, then that'll be legit. Let them see them number 1.
Yeah.
We know what now, particularly in this era of 3-point hysteria, you can be beaten. Everybody can be beaten.
Well,
everybody in the field we saw last year with Virginia going down. So I'm less agitated. And let's get on.
I think it's legitimate. Like Virginia is like 29-3.
It's fine. I got no beef with those 3 teams being number 1 seeds. None.
Nor do I.
Even though I think another conference is a better conference. Duke, according to the knuckleheads in Las Vegas, is the fave to win it all. The odds makers like Duke as much as they did undefeated Kentucky 4 years ago, but the Wildcats did not win it all that year. Lost to Wisconsin, Big Ten team. The Jahlil Okafor, Justice Winslow Duke team won it. But this Duke team, now that Zion is back and making roadkill of people, is better than that Duke team. Zion's 81 points in 3 ACC tournament games was breathtaking. So let's get to it, Tony. You got anybody beating Duke?
I'm going to get to that. But you said something like under your breath that was the Wisconsin-Kentucky game. Mm-hmm. That's one of the greatest 5 tournament games I have personally ever seen.
Yes,
and Wisconsin had nothing left after that. That was their tournament game. Right.
And that's the game we remember. Yeah, I had to ask Matt Kelleher who won the tournament that year.
So let me get to this.
Tournament was
Do I see anybody beating Duke? I mean, I accept the fact that Duke can be beaten. But my belief is that unless you see Zion Williamson with both shoes exploding, I think that they are the best team. I'm going to go through a few numbers here. They have only lost 2 games when Williamson is on the floor. Okay. One of them against Syracuse, 2 of their other starters were out in that game. The game that they lost with everybody out there in November to Gonzaga was by 2 points. So with everybody healthy and Williamson, they're 26-1. Now, we've had this discussion in other venues, you and I. And I know you believe that they don't shoot the threes well enough.
Just makes them... It makes them vulnerable.
I know, but I think if you keep shooting 2s the way they shoot them, they're going to win. But you don't.
Well, of course I think Duke can win.
No, but you don't think they will win.
Duke should be favored to win, but my bracket doesn't have that.
I know.
My bracket, the day after St. Patrick's Day, has a team that wears a little green in its uniform. And so in the final
Binghamton?
four,
because we're not actually in it.
If Binghamton was in the tournament, I would
We're not actually, yeah.
I would go in a Bearcat
green.
uniform
That's right.
if Binghamton was in I would do that. I got Duke losing to Michigan State in a regional final.
Right.
I think Michigan State, I think Tom Izzo's team, I had some time to spend with Tom Izzo during the Big Ten tournament. And I just love when he talked about the tournament and how whimsical it is at times, how he's had great teams that got eliminated early and teams he thought, I don't know, we can do this. And they've gotten to the championship game. So I think he, as much as any coach, including Krzyzewski, Boeheim, that elite group of coaches that takes teams, Bill Self, takes teams to the tournament, deep in the tournament, I like Michigan State.
I'm just gonna say this, and I'm not gonna go very expansive in it. I've watched a lot of college basketball over a lot of years. Zion Williamson, to me, is David Thompson. He's the one absolutely spectacular player. Okay. Like when they talk about Reddish and Barrett being number 1 overall or number 2 overall.
You go crazy.
When he's not on the court, they're good, they're not great. Yeah. When he's on the court, that's what makes Duke great is him. That's all.
David Thompson.
Yeah.
That's
who's the most spectacular college player.
He's your Willie Mays, David Thompson.
In college, in terms of spectacularness, yes. Okay. All right, Wilbon, let's look at the rest of the field. Let's exempt the ones and the twos.
All right.
Is there a team out there that you think will get to the Final Four from the 3-line or higher? And is there a team you think will win a couple of games that's not on everybody's radar?
Yeah, I got Belmont winning a couple of games, which means I haven't beaten LSU. Could be Yale, but I got them beating LSU. So I got Belmont winning a couple of games. As you know, Tony, I love Murray State and I love Ja Morant.
Yes.
And I've got Murray State knocking out Florida State. I really didn't have the guts
first you have
Florida State getting knocked out by Vermont. I wanted to have the guts to do that, but I don't have the guts.
So first you have them beating Marquette.
Yes, I do. And Marquette, who I normally root for, a Midwestern team.
A 5 seed.
They struggled a little bit.
At the end, they were terrible, but they're a 5 seed.
Yeah, but
and then Florida State.
Yes.
Good team.
But in terms, that's still winning a couple of games. The team I have going is the 3 seed to the Final Four.
Yeah.
I have Purdue. I have Purdue in the Final Four.
No coincidence that you were a Big Ten guy.
No.
And you've been saying all year long, top to bottom.
Top to bottom.
Okay.
Top to bottom.
Okay. I look around and I don't like to do chalk.
I know.
This year.
It's chalky.
This year, I only think there are 6 teams that can win.
Okay.
And they're all in the 1s and 2s. I've got Duke, Virginia, North Carolina, Kentucky, Michigan State, Michigan.
You don't even have Gonzaga.
No, and I don't have
Tennessee. I got the Zags in the Final Four.
No, I don't. Now, there are games I'd like to see. Every year, the tournament committee puts together a couple of things that are interesting.
I know one of them.
I would like
Louisville,
to see.
Minnesota.
I want to see that because I want to see if Rick Pitino sits on the bench with Richard Pitino and taunts his former players. If Arizona State wins a play-in game, they play Buffalo. So Bobby Hurley could coach against all the players that he recruited. And then we have Auburn and Kansas, that possibility that I like to call the wiretap bowl. And I think that would be interesting. So I have those.
There's a game I want to see, which nobody else cares about. I want to see Wofford and Kentucky. It's a second-round game. There's some. I think we're over.
See, I don't know about Wofford or Buffalo or Nevada.
I don't know what? When a team wins 30,
Cal Irvine
with Doc Rivers' son. I'm rooting for them.
I don't know.
But there's some interesting stuff.
I'm just saying that for me,
a fewer number of teams can win than usual.
This is the year.
I'm chalky. Very chalky. If Purdue is a 3, that's as low as I'm going for getting to the Final Four. We got to talk a little bit, Tony, about the big boys, specifically the Milwaukee Bucks, for whom it's been smooth as glass sailing until Friday. We'll get back to that. Yesterday, Giannis Antetokounmpo, say it with me.
Antetokounmpo.
You're getting so much better at this. Scored a career-high 52 at home, no less. But his Bucks still lost to the 76ers. Note, Joel Embiid had 40 himself, and the Sixers are 4-0 since he returned to the lineup. But Tony, top-seeded Milwaukee and Antetokounmpo should feel what exactly coming out of this weekend?
They should feel terrible. Malcolm Brogdon's hurt. Yeah. They should feel terrible. Now, I don't know how long he's going to be out. Antetokounmpo is a great player. He had 52.
He's not out for the season unless they were to lose in the first round.
He had 52. You don't know how healthy he comes back when he comes back. Antetokounmpo had 52 and 17, and Embiid had 40 and 15, and they're great players. But if I am Boston, if I am Toronto, if I'm anybody other than Kyrie Irving, who's miserable all the time, but if I'm looking for something to make me feel a little bit more optimistic, Brogdon is a really good player, and I think that hurts Milwaukee tremendous. It's a late season injury.
Yeah, with Bledsoe and Brogdon, I mean, they have a nice ensemble around Antetokounmpo, and they play so well together.
You love Brogdon, though.
I love. Brogdon's on a list with the likes of Steve Nash and Steph Curry, a list of players fewer than 10, maybe about 10, in the history of basketball who've already had, or I guess he's on pace, who have 50, 40, 90 seasons, 90 at the foul line, 40 from three, and 50 from overall. This isn't. You don't think of Malcolm Brogdon, not yet anyway, as an elite player, but Tony.
But he's important to the team.
He is so tremendously important to that team. I think he's their second most important player.
I'm not sure Philadelphia has everything, all the psychological and physical components to win. But I think that Boston and Toronto can, and if this takes Milwaukee out of play.
Right.
You sound a little more optimistic than most.
About Brogdon.
Yes.
If we're talking 6 weeks, and that's a possibility, not a crazy one. Not a Reggie White back by Sunday after knee surgery. We're not talking about that.
Right.
So if Brogdon can get back by the end of the first round, look, first round they're going to go 1-8. And the 8 is Brooklyn or Miami or Orlando or So Milwaukee's going to win that series. But then you got to have him back for the second round, Tony, because then you could get the number 4 seed, which could be Philly or Boston.
Can I go back to the NCAAs for a second? Because I think Michigan State got hosed in one regard. You say you think they're going to beat Duke. I don't think they should have to play Duke to get to the Final Four.
At some point.
They beat Michigan 3 times. Michigan only has to beat Gonzaga. I don't think that's
You know what? Virginia had this happen 2 years in a row.
Let's take a break. Coming up, does LeBron deserve the blame for the Lakers' latest loss?
Are we still talking about the Lakers?
Yes.
If so, why?
Yes.
And is John Elway right that Joe Flacco is entering his prime? Entering.
Well, at 34.
Does John need is there a metric for this?
John needs to ask himself, what am I doing here? That's what he needs to do.
Pardon the Interruption is brought to you by Century 21. The only moves anyone remembers are the relentless ones. Relentless moves.
With Advil.